So my name is Juliana Guevara, and on April 8th, 2016, I was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia. My story is a bit unique in that my husband and I tried for almost 5 years to get pregnant. We went through 3 unsuccessful infertility treatments before deciding, all right, we're just going to give this over to God, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then 6 months later, we found out that I was expecting, and we were so excited. Just a huge time of celebration and lots of doctor's appointments. And I happened to come across another blog or Instagram that was this girl who did yoga, and she was 9 months pregnant with a big belly doing all these cool moves. I'm like, I want to be like her. So I had been following her for about a year at that point, and she had given birth to a stillborn son. And it was a mystery as to why that happened since she was so healthy. Then she ended up getting pregnant again. And this blog that I was reading, this entry was about how with her daughter, she started to feel symptoms similar to that when she was pregnant with her son. And so she started saying how they figured out that it was a rare liver disorder that occurs in pregnancy that she had. And so she went on to educate all of her readers, including myself, about intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy. It's typically a liver disorder that's diagnosed in the third trimester. However, here I was reading her blog, only 9 weeks pregnant, like just in the very beginning stages. And she said that the telltale sign was itchy palms and itchy bottoms of the feet. And I was like, that's kind of strange because I've been having that. But typically, again, this isn't diagnosed until the third trimester, so, can't be. But I went a couple weeks later for my first checkup with my new OB, and she was going to be running all these blood tests. So I mentioned to her about ICP, and she told me that in her 30 plus years of experience, she's never had a patient with ICP, but she's like, you know what? Since I'm running all these tests anyway, I'll go ahead and just order a script for that. Thank God for that moment because I was diagnosed with ICP. I ended up having ICP very, very early stages of it. So we were able to treat it early on because just like with this other girl, it can create stillbirth. But part of treatment is that you have to go for blood work every 2 weeks. So you're closely monitored by not only an OB/GYN, but also by a maternal fetal medicine doctor. So I had these two very knowledgeable, experienced doctors that were overseeing me. And every 2 weeks I was going for this blood work. And they were noticing these weird trends in my blood. They weren't making sense. I was healthy otherwise. So they wanted me to schedule an appointment with the hematologist. However, finding a hematologist that will see a pregnant person is very, very hard to do. So I had scheduled an appointment. The appointment was like a month and a half off. So just was playing the waiting game. And during that time, shortly thereafter, I started to get a fever. I had like a cough, and this fever just kept coming and climbing, and I had a racing heart. So I called my OB and told her what was going on, contacted the maternal fetal medicine doctor as well, and they urged me to try to get in to see the hematologist sooner. I called, no sooner appointments. So they ended up admitting me for a night to the hospital to get my fever down, to see what was going on. I ended up having the flu and pneumonia. So I was released from the hospital after 24 hours in observation, and they gave me some steroid shots for my daughter because with ICP you have to be induced 4 weeks early, 3 to 4 weeks early, depending, in order to prevent anything from happening to the baby. So we knew I was going to be induced early, so they gave me the steroid shots to help her lungs develop faster, and thank God they did that. I went home, was out without a fever for a day, and then the fever came back. And I called the hematologist's office again. Like, I need to get in, I need to get in. They didn't have anything. I called one more time to ask them a different question. And the girl picked up the phone and she's like, get here at 1:20. It's like, what? I've been calling for like weeks. You don't have anything available. She's like, no, come at 1:20. And I owe a lot to her because I went in, my husband and I rushed over there, and I had all of my my blood work with me, all of my records, and I'm talking to the hematologist, and he's, reviewing me, and they did blood work in the office too. And he's like, okay, but you have a fever, you do have the flu, so some of these could be attributed to you being sick. And then I pulled out a form of blood work that I had done just like a month prior. And he's like, oh, I don't have that one in my record. So as soon as he saw that piece of paper, his eyes widened, and he's like, I need to admit you right now for a bone marrow biopsy. So it took a while to go in through the emergency room again to get admitted. So in the emergency room, they found out that I had H1N1 and pneumonia. So they focused on fighting that. And then the next day, I went in for the bone marrow biopsy. And they thought I was crazy, but I refused the medicine to put under because I wanted to protect my baby. So I had done hypnobirthing. Thankful for that, because I just breathed my way through it. And what was supposed to be a minute procedure turned into a 15-minute procedure because it was so hard to get a sample. And I was told that it would take about a week to get the full results back. So like, okay, it's probably just some form of anemia. They're going to get my fever down again and send me back home. Well, just a few short hours later, a doctor came in my room. It was another maternal fetal medicine doctor, but I had never met her before. And she could tell by the carefree atmosphere, like my parents were there, we were saying goodbye, they were getting ready to leave as she walked in the room. And she said, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but you have leukemia. And we were not expecting that at all. That was the furthest thing from my radar. I didn't even know that you could have cancer and be pregnant. But she stayed with us, and my oncologist, he had gotten the phone call on his way home about my diagnosis. So he put his family to bed, turned right back around, and came, and they both sat at my bedside until 1:00 in the morning, explaining acute promyelocytic leukemia to us, answering our questions. They were just so encouraging, and I'm so grateful for them. So treatment started as soon as they left the room, because with APL, it is known to be highly aggressive, but thankfully it is also one of the most curable forms of leukemia. So we had to start right away. There was no time to wait. And because I had pneumonia and fever, we had to wait for some IV chemo until the following Monday. But I was able to start the pill form that night. So the first round went well. And after the first round was finished, I started to have a difficult time breathing. I was trying to fall asleep, and I woke up gasping for air. And I woke up my husband and had him go in and get one of the nurses, since I was in the hospital throughout this whole time. And they came in and started running all these tests. And they decided to take me down to the ICU. And as soon as they started to do that, I started to cough up a lot of blood, which is a very rare side effect of one of the chemos that I was on. So I was 25 weeks pregnant by this point. And they wheeled me down to the ICU, and before I knew it, all of these labor and delivery nurses were coming in, incubator was getting set up, surgical equipment was coming in, anesthesiologists were coming in, the whole room was flooded. I'm like, what is going on? And they were standing by because I was crashing. My blood was not oxygenating, and I was going down fast. And I wasn't able to talk, but I had my cell phone. And so I opened the notes tab, and the intensivist doctor is telling me, I need you to sign this because we're going to have to intubate you. You're crashing, and they're standing by to do an emergency C-section on you. Because as soon as you're out, like, we have to go and take her. And then I was like typing furiously, like, no, like, please don't, like, you're not going to have to do that. Just give me some time. I can beat this. Like, I'm going to fight it. Please, like, just give me time. And this was in the middle of the night. So, they weren't able to get a hold of my oncologist right away and all of that. So they were scrambling, not sure what the heck was going on with me. And then finally, my oncologist was able to contact them and tell them, like, okay, wait, slow down. Like, she's going to fight through this, give her these things, and this will, like, help or whatever. So I spent a week in the ICU. I was on a ventilator and had to wean myself off of that and oxygen and all of that. And as soon as I got back up to my home floor on the oncology floor is when my hair started falling out. And that was the one thing that I was holding on to. If I had to go through this experience, I didn't want to look like I had cancer. I didn't want to look like I was sick. and waiting for this, 5 years to get pregnant. I already had Pinterest boarded exactly what I wanted my maternity pictures to look like, the setting I wanted them in, and a bald head just did not match with that, or so I thought. So that was a really emotional experience for me. Is was just the clumps of hair falling out, and and then I was able to go home for a short week in order to have a baby shower before gearing up for my next round of chemo. And so we went through our second round of chemo, and then after that, I was able just to stay in the hospital for a week during that time, not a whole month and a half like I did before. So I was really grateful for that. And we got to go home and get a break from chemo, prepare for the arrival of my daughter. And then on July 12th, 2016, I gave birth to my perfectly healthy baby girl, Aliana Love. She came after, like, oh gosh, it was like, I think 29 hours in labor, something like that, something crazy, because I had to be induced because of the ICP, not even because of the leukemia. But she was healthy. She was 4 pounds, 10 ounces, but strong. She didn't need any NICU time. And because of those steroid shots, her lungs were super strong and she was able to breathe on her own. So we got to take her home and heal for about a month before starting again. And so going through treatment, it was my chemo changed since I was no longer pregnant. They were able to do the golden standard, which is not safe in pregnancy. But this golden standard required a month of treatment on and a month of treatment off. Monday through Friday, you're going in for treatments, and you get the weekends off. So the months on were rough. It was every single day going to outpatient, hours long, getting infusions, leaving my newborn daughter behind. But I'm so grateful. Like, we were given donor milk during that time. So until she was 6 months old, she was fed the best stuff and just healthy. And then in February of 2017, I had my last treatment. And the month later, they said, okay, you are cancer free. So now every 3 months, I go in for checkups just to make sure that we're healthy and I'm good. My daughter, she sees a cardiologist just as a preventative. She still continues to be in perfect health. But with one of the chemos, it could be like long-term side effects of cardio issues. So we just stay ahead of that. But my goodness, going through that, you feel like, will this ever end? Is this like what my life is going to be like for the rest of it? But it is crazy when time passes that you look back and it seems like a distant memory. There's times I'm like, did I really go through that? There's times that I do things like this. I share my story and I'm like, this seems like an out of body experience. This doesn't seem like it happened to me. But then I look at my daughter and I'm like reminded just of the miracle that she is, and the wealth of support that was around me at that time and continues to be around, cheering me on, still giving me well wishes and prayers, is really a thing that gave so much strength to myself and my family in this process. Something I'm so grateful for.